Halloween is coming, a time of ghosts and scares, monsters and brews. Here are a few lesser-known potions I think in D&D 5e you should use. Welcome back, I'm Dylan, opening up the shop here at Tabletop Tinkerer for you today, bringing you a list of some potions that I think are very, very valuable and underused in D&D 5e. I personally have a very fond fascination with these particular items, maybe because of my fascination with the Artificer class as a whole and the way those two items sort of work side by side together. Through the various games and characters that I've played, as well as just doing general research on my own, I have found several potions that I really like and seek out on a regular basis when I am playing the game. Potions come from a whole host of different options and abilities that you can gain from them, and really allow you to prepare for the next coming encounter or journey that you're going on in ways that a lot of spells either can't or potions just do better, but at the cost of either money or having somebody craft it for you. The first on this list is the Oil of Slipperiness, which gives you the effect of the Freedom of Movement spell, which is a 4th level spell as a rare potion. As a matter of fact, this potion is better than the spell that it represents in every single way, -1. That is the duration to apply the effect. See, when you cast the spell, it's just an action. When you're using the oil, it takes you 10 minutes. So you can't do it in combat. And that's really the only time that it's not as effective, actually better than the Freedom of Movement spell by itself. Otherwise, it's 100% better in every single way. Even the duration is lengthened by a great deal. The spell itself, you can only use for an hour. Using the oil to apply it, however, the effects linger for a grand total of 8 hours. Much, much longer than the spell by itself can use. And again, this is a 4th level spell. It is very potent. What does it do? It allows you to wriggle out and break free of a lot of things that would cause you to be restrained. A key way that a DM will try to lock you and your player down is by causing you to be restrained or held down physically. The Freedom of Movement spell will allow you to avoid that entirely. And to boot that off, what makes this a truly impressive potion is that it's only uncommon, which means that it's relatively easy to find in the world of D&D. Of course, your DM's discretion advised, but according to the rarity of the item, it should be relatively easy to find and or find somebody who can brew it for you, including the components being not that difficult to locate. Given that one way your DM could present you achieving a potion that you would like to get is finding someone to craft it for you specifically and them sending you on a quest to go find those necessary items to craft said potion. And really, a lot of the potions that I've put on this list really just resemble spells in a slightly different way, or are just the spells that I don't necessarily want to use a spell slot for or take up space on my prepared list. These are something I can keep off to the side and would like to have handy, but know that I'm not going to use it all the time, but are never really sure when I'm going to need it either, so it makes it hard to justify putting it on the list of spells that I know and or prepare. So that's where potions like Potion of Gaseous Form come in. Because going into a gaseous form is not always, and is actually very rarely, something that you should do. It is a 3rd level spell, though the potion itself is actually rare, so higher up the rarity chart than the previous mention of Oil of Slipperiness, and it allows you to use a spell of the same name. The spell has a rather detailed explanation of what it does, but what it boils down to is you become a gas cloud of medium size that can float around with a flying speed of 10 feet. Other than that, you can't really do anything, but it's implied that you can observe everything as normal. So this allows you to do things like cross chasms, escape, much more protected as you have resistance to a lot of different damage types. Use it to perhaps move a little bit more sneakily in an open and darkly lit area, or anything else that you can think of that you could use this type of ability to go for. This is a game where we get to use our imaginations, and this spell really allows for that to happen. On top of that, while this spell normally takes your concentration, this one does not. So even if it's somebody else that's casting the spell on you, they are free to use their concentration on something else, because you can't cast a spell while in this form. You can't benefit from the swayed of double concentration yourself, but it can apply to your party members while you're using this to then perform whatever feat it is that you would otherwise be unable to without this potion. Next up, we have the Potion of Speed. It gives you access to the haste spell, which is a 3rd level spell, and in my opinion, and I don't think I'd get a lot of pushback from this by a lot of people, is one of the best spells in the game, especially at that level. It opens up a lot of options. For one spell slot at 3rd level and one action, you therefore get +2 to your AC, twice your movement speed, and an additional action every round that you can use to attack, dash, disengage, or some of those other minor actions, though the attack will only give you one extra attack and not a full entire attack action. But this opens up a lot of possibilities, and as many people will tell you, action economy is king in D&D, and the more action economy that you can gain and receive is just better. The only problem with this potion is it is a very rare potion, but the trade-off for this higher cost is going to be that you get to use it again without concentration. And using one of the best spells in the game that typically does require concentration, which is a balancing mechanism for this, makes it very powerful because, again, you can now concentrate on 2 spells effectively. Whoever would have been casting that spell before is now free to cast another powerful concentration spell. And in fact, one of those concentration spells can be another haste. But not every potions have to emulate spells, and not all of them have to be overly complicated. In fact, this next one is very simple, doesn't emulate a spell at all, but is very, very, very useful and effective. It is of rare rarity, so a little bit harder to find, a little bit more scarce, but what it does is very, very useful and effective. And not something that you're going to need at all times. More so actually one of those items that you can save when you truly need it. I'm talking here about the Potion of Invulnerability, and it does what it says. It gives you invulnerability to everything. It makes you resistant to all damage types. No asterisk, no but, it gives resistance to every single damage type. The only thing in the game that comes close to this is the Bear Totem Barbarian, and you have to build a very specific character or take 3 levels in something just to achieve the effect, and it still does not give you the resistance to psychic damage. This does. And while we're opening and expanding the possibilities, the rarity doesn't always have to be that high. We've only had one item so far that was below the rare rarity, and this next item is actually common. It is a very useful potion that you could start using pretty early on in the game and should have access to fairly often. It's the Potion of Rest, and it does what it says. Again, they're not trying to trick you with these names at all. It basically gives you a rest without actually having to take a rest. When you drink this potion, you basically gain the effects of a long rest over the next 8 hours, but you don't have to go to sleep. In fact, not only do you not have to go to sleep, it is impossible to put you to sleep. You are basically being given an amphetamine without the negative side effects when the next day comes, because you in fact get the effects of a full rest and you are rip-roaring ready to go, and there's no come down or bad side effects that are going to befall your character. Instead, you just get to move along, all for the price of a common potion. But if we could go back into the realm of potions that are a little bit more scarce and hard to find, sometimes they're that way because they deal with certain effects that don't come up very often and are hard to get rid of or overcome when they do show up. I'm talking about the condition of exhaustion, which is just a painful experience if you've had to go through it, or if you've gone through an experience where you've gotten multiple levels of exhaustion at one time. It just takes forever to get rid of them, but not if you have a potion of vitality, which is very rare, so it will be in turn very hard to find or come across or pay for if you find it in the store compared to other potions. But if you do have one and you have multiple levels of exhaustion, you can get rid of an extra level when you drink this, on top of when you take your long rest for that day, and on top of that, for the rest of that 24-hour period after drinking this potion. Yes, 24-hour period. That's a long duration for a potion. Every time you use a hit die, you will use the maximum hit die. You won't have to roll. You just say, I use this hit die, and if you're using a paladin, it's a D10. So you get 10 HP plus your constitution modifier. So no having to worry about rolling a 1 on that very, very valuable resource to regain your health. You're just going to get a flat 10 plus the con modifier. And the last 2 potions that I want to talk about come directly from monsters in the game. The first one being the Potion of Giant Strength. Now, this potion actually emulates other magic items that can be found in the game that are actually a lot better. But there's a reason why I like these potions and have included them on the list. I'm talking about the Belts of Giant Strength. It will give you the strength score equal to the corresponding giant that the belt or potion is made from or derived from. The belt will take one of your attunement slots, but will permanently grant you this benefit as long as you remain attuned to the item. However, they're going to be a lot harder to come across and much more expensive. The potions, on the other hand, should be a little bit easier to get Don't take an attunement slot so you can gain other benefits as well and only rely on the strength benefit when you truly, really need it, perhaps those really important boss battles. But when it comes to dropping hints about what your character might like, or even if your DM straight up asks you about items that you might like, it's going to be an easier sell to say, hey, this potion that gives me a temporary benefit would be really useful, or something that I would like to look out for, versus a belt that's going to permanently grant you the ability, and potentially, if the DM gives it to you at the wrong moment, to the wrong character at the wrong time, might break the game by accident by making you a little bit too powerful too early based off what the DM has in store for you. But by no means, if you find a belt or are given one of the belts, take the belt and only use the potion if it gives you a higher strength score than that type of belt that was given to you. And while it took us a minute to get to this last entry on the list, I'm not going to take a long time to explain it because it's very simple and explains itself for the most part. I'm talking about the potion of Dragon's Majesty, which is the only legendary item on this list at all. But what it does, very simply, and stick with me here as I say this to make sure that you're listening because you're not mishearing me when I say it turns you into a dragon. It makes you into 50% of what the game is called. You can't become a dungeon in Dungeons & Dragons, but you can become a dragon in Dungeons & Dragons by drinking this potion. A few caveats in there. You can't use the change shape spell to turn back into yourself. You can't use your legendary actions or your lair actions because that's a little bit too much for a player character to have with a whole entire party to go by. But I'm going to say it again. It turns you into a dragon. Do you need any more selling on this item except for the fact, yes, it is a legendary item. It's going to be hard to come across, or if you find it in a store, it's going to be expensive, and rightfully so. If your DM makes it hard for you to get this, they're not being prohibitive. They're making you earn it. Because if you have earned this, you did a good job, I'm assuming. This is not getting handed out like Pop Rocks at the movies. But I'm also not sure that you knew that this was a thing. Hey guys, guess what? In Dungeons & Dragons, you can be a dragon. Just find a potion of Dragon's Majesty, and the world instantly becomes your horde. But those are just a few examples of the potions that I particularly like and have come across in the game and have enjoyed so far in my career playing or running Dungeons & Dragons. What are some potions or other magic items for that matter, in fact, that you particularly like in D&D that you think others should know about and try to find and keep an eye out for as they go throughout their games? If you found this list interesting, go ahead and let me know by liking the video and hitting the subscribe button so you can know when my next video is going to come out, usually on Mondays. And with all that said, we're going to bring the shop to a close, and I'll see you again when the next one comes out. And until then, keep working towards a better game.